Gentlemen, let me start with a truth most men are too shy to admit out loud. Yes, older adults still have sex. The real question is this: what separates the men and women who feel deeply satisfied with their intimate lives as the years go by from those who quietly give up? I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, urologist and pelvic surgeon, and today we're going to talk about what truly shapes your sexual life as you age. And more importantly, how to keep that part of your life alive, fulfilling, and meaningful. If you're new here, welcome. Twice a week I sit down at this microphone to bring you practical science on urology, bladder health, sexual wellness, and the hidden truths that most men only whisper about in doctors' offices. I want you to think of this podcast not just as information, but as a conversation between you and me, man to man, human to human. Now, before we dive in, let me pause for a moment to ask you for something simple. If you find these conversations valuable, take a second right now, hit the like button. It may sound small, but every time you press that button, it tells the platform, this message matters, this man's health matters. And in return, I want to bless you with 3 things straight from my heart to yours. First, may every sunrise you wake to bring you just a little more strength than the day before. Second, may your body still surprise you with energy, with vitality, with sparks of passion you thought were gone. And third, may your spirit remain unshaken no matter your age, reminding you that your best chapters might still be ahead. So go ahead, tap that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Tell me what worries you, what questions you have, or even what you disagree with. I read every single comment because this isn't about statistics, it's about you. And together, we can build a community where men don't fade quietly into old age, but stand tall, informed, and connected. All right, let's step into the heart of the matter. What really changes in your sexual life as you grow older, and which factors can predict satisfaction? The answers may surprise you. So let's ground this conversation in real evidence, not just anecdotes. Around the turn of the millennium, a group of German researchers decided to ask a question most people avoid: what truly changes in sexual satisfaction as people get older? They didn't rely on guesswork, they went straight to the people themselves. Here's what they did. In the years 2000, 2008, and again in 2011, they mailed out surveys to a representative cross-section of their population. These weren't a handful of volunteers. They gathered thousands of voices, real men and women willing to talk honestly about their sex lives. In fact, depending on the year, each round included between 500 and 5,000 participants. That's not a small sample. That's enough to reveal patterns too strong to ignore. The researchers divided the responses into 2 age groups. The first was what they called middle age, between 40 and 60 years old. The second was older adults, 65 and beyond. Then they asked the questions most people never dare to put on the table. How satisfied are you with your sex life? How important is sexuality and intimacy to you on a scale from 1 to 7? How do you rate your own health? How many close relationships do you still maintain? And what about your cognitive function? How sharp do you feel mentally? Now here's where the numbers spoke loud. Not surprisingly, older participants carried more chronic diseases. That's the reality of aging: blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, the silent companions of later life. What shocked me, though, is that when it came to depression rates, there wasn't much difference between the middle-aged group and the seniors. Depression wasn't the dividing line. Instead, another pattern jumped out. When asked how important sexuality was to them, older adults scored about 1 full point lower on that 1 to 7 scale compared to middle-aged respondents. It may not sound like much, but statistically it was significant. In plain words, as people got older, many started to see sexuality and intimacy as less central to their lives. And yet, here's the paradox. When you strip the numbers down, one consistent truth emerged. Sexual satisfaction declined steadily after 65. Even for those who still valued intimacy, the actual experience of being satisfied with their sex life dropped. That finding raises deeper questions. Was it purely physical decline? Was it the shrinking circle of social connections as friends and loved ones pass on? Was it the weight of illnesses that made sex more difficult, or was it simply a matter of lowered expectations? I'll tell you this. When I first read through the data, I wasn't surprised that poor health predicted poor satisfaction. That part was expected. But hidden in the study were three fascinating threads, three factors that didn't just correlate but actively predicted who would still report sexual satisfaction in their later years. And that's where things get really interesting. So stay with me, because in the next part we'll peel back those layers. And you may just find answers that explain not only statistics, but also your own life. When we step away from the numbers and simply look at real life, the truth is undeniable. Sex at an older age feels different. Not gone, not meaningless, simply different. For many men and women, the body doesn't respond the way it once did. Erections take longer, arousal is less spontaneous, and the rhythms of intimacy may shift from fiery urgency to something slower, more deliberate. That doesn't make it worse. In fact, some couples discover a depth of connection they never had in their younger years, but it does mean expectations have to adjust. There's also the social side of aging. Friends move away, partners pass on, families grow busy with their own lives. That shrinking circle of connection can quietly chip away at intimacy. After all, sexuality isn't only about what happens in the bedroom. It's about feeling desired, feeling connected, and knowing someone values you enough to reach across the distance. Another reality is health. Conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and prostate problems are not just medical checkboxes. They have direct consequences for sexual function, stamina, and desire. The same goes for medications. Many life-saving drugs carry side effects that blunt libido. And yet, despite all of this, I remind my patients constantly, sex doesn't disappear with age unless you let it. The form may change, but the essence, the closeness, the tenderness, the confidence can still thrive. The key is how you choose to frame it in your own life. That brings us to a crucial question. Does the importance you place on sexuality itself influence your satisfaction? The answer, as the research revealed, is yes. And the difference is striking. Here's one of the most powerful lessons hidden inside that German study. The men and women who placed a higher value on sexuality, who said, "Yes, this still matters to me," were far more likely to report satisfaction with their sex lives. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? If you care about something, you'll find ways to nurture it. But let's pause here, because this isn't about wishful thinking. It's about mindset shaping outcome. When you believe intimacy still matters, you're more likely to invest in it. You'll adjust your lifestyle, you'll talk with your partner, you'll seek medical help if needed. That active stance is what keeps satisfaction alive. I've seen this countless times in my own practice. Two men, both in their 70s, one shrugs and says, "That part of life is over." And sure enough, within a few years, his drive fades completely. The other man looks me in the eye and says, "Doc, I still want to enjoy this part of life." And he makes changes: better diet, regular walks, even learning new ways to connect with his wife. And guess what? He keeps his spark. This isn't just about biology. It's about giving yourself permission to desire, to imagine, to try. Too often, older adults internalize the message that sex is for the young, that intimacy after 65 is somehow embarrassing. That's a lie. The truth is, intimacy doesn't expire, it only withers if you stop tending to it. So let me ask you this directly. Where do you place sexuality in your own life right now? A luxury, a distraction, or still an essential thread in your well-being? Your honest answer might tell you more about your future satisfaction than any blood test could. And speaking of honest answers, I want to pause here to open the floor. Many of you have been writing in, leaving comments, asking bold, even difficult questions. Let's step into that conversation together. Now, before we move further, let's take a moment to hear from you. I've read through the comments from our last session and I want to answer a few directly here. Because this isn't just me talking into a microphone, it's a conversation. Question 1, George, 72 from Ohio. Doc, I'm still married, but my wife and I haven't been intimate in years. Is it even worth trying again at our age? George, let me be blunt. Yes, it is worth it. Intimacy doesn't always mean recreating what you had in your 20s. It can mean finding new rhythms, gentler touches, or simply rebuilding closeness. Start with small gestures, holding hands, a back rub, a quiet talk at night. Those small acts often reopen the door. Question 2, Michael, 68 from Texas. I walk every day, eat right, but my erections are weaker. Am I broken? Michael, you are not broken. What you're experiencing is blood flow changes that come with age, but you're already ahead by walking daily. Add pelvic floor exercises and don't shy away from medical support if needed. The truth, a weaker erection is not the end of manhood, it's a signal to adapt, not surrender. Question 3, Richard, 75 from Florida. Doc, why do doctors always push pills instead of teaching lifestyle fixes? Richard, fair point. Too often medicine rushes to prescriptions. Pills have their place, but they are not the foundation. I tell my patients, lifestyle first, movement, nutrition, connection. Pills can support, but they should never replace your own investment in health. Question 4, anonymous comment. This is nonsense. After 70, sex is over. Stop selling dreams. My friend, I hear your frustration, but I'll push back gently. Sex at 70 is only over if you believe it is. I've treated men in their 80s who rediscovered intimacy. The difference was mindset and effort, not just age. If you choose to close the book, it's closed, but for many, the story still has chapters left. Question 5, Helen, 66 from California. As a woman, I feel forgotten in these conversations. Do men even realize how hard intimacy is for us after menopause? Helen, thank you for that honesty. You're right, women's challenges deserve just as much space here. Dryness, discomfort, and shifting desire are real, but they are treatable. And yes, men need to understand that intimacy is a shared journey. Gentlemen, notice the thread here. Whether it's frustration, doubt, or hope, the one factor that makes or breaks satisfaction isn't just biology, it's connection. Which brings us to the next challenge aging brings: loneliness. And trust me, that factor can erode intimacy faster than any disease. Let's talk about something that rarely makes it into medical charts, yet shapes sexual satisfaction more than any lab result: loneliness. You see, many of the men I meet expect me to talk about testosterone levels, blood flow, or prostate health. And yes, those matter. But here's the truth most won't admit. Intimacy dries up not only because the body changes, but because isolation creeps in. When you lose touch with others, when your phone no longer rings, when you sit alone more nights than not, that emptiness bleeds into the bedroom. The German study revealed it clearly. Older adults who reported being lonely were far less satisfied with their sexual lives. And honestly, does that surprise you? Without connection, sexuality becomes a shadow of what it could be. Even if your body still responds, without someone to share it with, the spark dims. I think about the men who have sat across from me in my office. Some tell me, "Doc, my drive is gone." But when I dig deeper, it's not their biology that's faded, it's their social world. Their wife passed years ago, or their children live states away. They've stopped meeting friends for coffee, stopped joining community events, stopped reaching out. Slowly, the circle shrinks, and so does desire. So here's my prescription one you won't find at the pharmacy: stay connected. Send that simple text: "Hey brother, how are you doing?" Call your daughter, even if she's busy. Join the church group, the walking club, the veterans breakfast, whatever keeps you tethered. Because every relationship you nurture keeps your heart alive, and by extension keeps intimacy alive. Gentlemen, loneliness is not just a social problem, it's a health risk. It weakens immunity, shortens lifespan, and yes, steals your satisfaction in the most private corners of life. Don't underestimate it. Now, loneliness affects both men and women. But the truth is, women face another layer of difficulty as they age, one that biology itself sets in motion. And that's what we need to look at next. One of the most striking findings in the research was this. Women, on average, were less likely to report satisfaction with their sexual lives as they aged. And if you think about what women's bodies go through, it makes sense. After menopause, estrogen levels fall sharply. This hormonal shift changes everything. Vaginal tissues thin, natural lubrication decreases, and sexual activity that once felt effortless can suddenly feel uncomfortable, even painful. Add to that a decline in libido, and it's no wonder many women withdraw from intimacy altogether. But here's the part I want to underline. It's not just biology, it's also silence. Too many women suffer in quiet, believing discomfort is just part of getting older. They don't tell their doctors, and often their partners don't understand what's happening. I've sat with men who thought their wives had simply lost interest when in reality, she was experiencing burning and dryness that made sex unbearable. Imagine the loneliness of that situation for both partners. Culturally, we've also failed women here. Society is quick to medicalize men's sexual changes. Erectile dysfunction gets entire industries of pills and devices. But women's struggles after menopause, often ignored, whispered about, or dismissed as unimportant. That imbalance has left generations of women feeling overlooked. And let's be honest, gentlemen, when your partner is struggling, your own satisfaction suffers too. Sexual intimacy is not a solo sport. If she is in pain or if she no longer feels desired, the ripple reaches you. In my experience, the happiest older couples are those who approach these changes as a team, not as opponents. So the data tells us what many couples already feel. Women face unique challenges to satisfaction after 65. But here's the good news. These challenges are not destiny. They are medical issues with medical solutions and emotional barriers that can be dismantled with understanding and support. Which leads us straight into the next essential question. What can women and the men who love them actually do about it? So what can be done? If women face such steep challenges after menopause, does satisfaction have to fade away? Absolutely not. There are real effective tools to help women reclaim comfort and desire. First, let's talk about the physical side. Vaginal dryness and thinning tissue can be addressed with lubricants, moisturizers, and in many cases, localized estrogen therapy. These treatments restore flexibility and moisture to the vaginal lining, often transforming sex from painful back into pleasurable. For some women, non-hormonal options or new medical devices can also offer relief. The key is simple: don't suffer in silence. Second, libido. Declining desire is not the end of intimacy, it's a signal. Sometimes testosterone therapy, carefully managed, can make a difference, but even more often it's about re-engaging the body and mind. Exercise, stress reduction, and even rediscovering non-sexual forms of closeness like massage, kissing, or touch without pressure can slowly reignite the spark. Third, communication. I can't emphasize this enough. When a woman shares openly with her partner, "This hurts," or "I'm nervous about intimacy now," it shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, sex is not about performance but about partnership. And when a partner listens with empathy rather than frustration, healing begins. I encourage every man who loves a woman to break that silence. Bring these issues to your doctor, ask for help. Medicine has advanced, there are more solutions than ever. What used to be brushed aside as just part of aging can now be treated with dignity and care. The truth is, satisfaction after 65 is not automatic, but it is possible. And when both partners face these challenges together, intimacy can evolve into something deeper, steadier, and more meaningful than before. And that leads us to the bigger picture. How sexual satisfaction is not just about the bedroom, but about your health, your well-being, and even your longevity. Gentlemen, here's the truth I want you to take with you. Sexual satisfaction is not an isolated corner of life. It's woven into your health, your relationships, your sense of purpose. The study confirmed what I've seen in decades of practice. When sexual satisfaction fades, it usually mirrors a decline in other areas too. But when it flourishes, it lifts the whole man. Think about it. To enjoy intimacy, you need circulation. That means caring for your heart. You need energy. That means movement, daily exercise, fueling your body with better food. You need emotional connection. That means staying in touch with people who matter, reaching out, refusing to let loneliness take root. And you need courage, the courage to talk openly about what you want, what hurts, and what you hope for. Too often, men over 65 believe their best days are behind them. I tell my patients, your body still responds to investment. Walk more. Eat fresh, cut down the sugar, the alcohol. Sleep like your health depends on it, because it does. These choices don't just add years to your life, they add life to your years. And don't underestimate the power of intimacy itself. Studies show that older adults who remain sexually active tend to report higher overall well-being, less depression, even greater longevity. In other words, sex is not a luxury, it's part of thriving. So here's my call to you: invest. Invest in your health, invest in your relationships, invest in your capacity to love and to be loved. It's never too late to choose vitality. Now, if you found today's session valuable, I'd ask you again, tap that like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Share your story, your struggles, your victories. This channel is not just about me talking, it's about us building a brotherhood of men who refuse to fade quietly. And let me leave you with this blessing. May your days ahead be filled with strength you thought you'd lost. May your nights bring comfort, warmth, and connection that remind you you're still alive. And may your spirit, no matter your age, always know you are not broken, you are still becoming. Take care of yourselves, gentlemen, because you're worth it. And your best days may not be behind you, they may be waiting just ahead.